Hi, my friends. Today I want to present you a new story. Enjoy watching it.
I never imagined that our lives could change so dramatically in just a few short months. Lucas and I had been married for only 6 weeks when I found out I was pregnant. The joy and excitement were palpable, a beautiful start to our life together. "Lucas, you won't believe this," I said, waving the positive pregnancy test in front of him. His eyes widened with surprise before he scooped me into his arms, spinning me around. "We're having a baby," he exclaimed, his voice filled with wonder and joy. We painted the nursery in soft hues of yellow and green, choosing furniture with care and love. Every ultrasound was a miracle, every flutter a confirmation of our growing family. We would lie in bed at night, Lucas's hand on my belly, feeling the gentle movements of our baby. "I can't wait to meet our little one," he would whisper, his eyes shining with love. Our routine doctor visits were always a highlight. Lucas never missed one, his hand always clasping mine as we waited to hear the reassuring thump-thump of our baby's heartbeat. At each appointment, the doctor would smile and tell us our baby was healthy and strong. We would leave the clinic brimming with happiness, Lucas often brushing a gentle kiss on my forehead, whispering sweet reassurances about our future. "Can you believe it, Donna?" Lucas said, squeezing my hand as we left one of our appointments. "In just a few months, we'll have our baby here with us." "I know," I replied, smiling up at him. "It feels like a dream." At 28 weeks, we decided to throw a baby shower. Friends and family gathered, showering us with love and gifts. The living room was filled with colorful balloons, laughter, and the scent of freshly baked cookies. As I sat surrounded by laughter and chatter, a sudden, sharp pain gripped my abdomen. "Ouch!" I cried out, clutching my stomach. Maya, my closest friend, rushed to my side, her face a mixture of concern and confusion. "Are you okay, Donna?" "I think I'm in labor," I managed to gasp between waves of pain. "We need to get to the hospital." The drive to the hospital felt like an eternity. Lucas arrived shortly after we did, his face pale with worry. "Donna, I'm here," he said, taking my hand. "Everything's going to be okay." The doctor's confirmation that I was in labor filled us with a mixture of fear and anticipation. Lucas held my hand tightly as the contractions grew more intense. "You're doing great, Donna," he said, his voice a soothing presence amid the chaos. The delivery room was a blur of lights and voices. I remember the doctor's voice, calm yet urgent, guiding me through the process. "You're almost there, Donna. Just a little more," the doctor said. The first baby emerged, a girl. "It's a girl," the doctor announced. Tears of joy streamed down my face, but there was no time to absorb this news before another head appeared. "It's a boy," the doctor exclaimed, and then, to our astonishment, a third baby arrived. Another boy. Lucas and I were stunned. We had prepared for one baby, but here were 3 beautiful, tiny miracles. The triplets were whisked away to the neonatal intensive care unit, born prematurely and needing extra care. As I was wheeled into recovery, Lucas' face was a mask of disbelief and concern. "How did we not know?" he asked the doctor, his voice shaking. "Sometimes ultrasounds can miss multiple pregnancies, especially if the babies are small and positioned just right to hide each other," the doctor explained. Lucas nodded, but I could see the unease in his eyes. He stayed at the hospital for a few hours, but left before I was discharged, promising to come back when we were ready to go home. The next few days were a whirlwind. I spent every moment I could in the NICU, watching over Alex, Amelia, and Aaron. Their tiny hands would grip my finger, their eyes opening occasionally to reveal glimpses of the future. Lucas's visits became sporadic. He always had an excuse, a work emergency, a delayed flight, but the truth became harder to ignore. The weight of our new reality was pressing down on him, and he was struggling to hold it up. One evening, as I sat by the incubators, a nurse approached me with a sympathetic smile. "You're doing an amazing job, Donna. They're lucky to have you," she said, patting my shoulder. "Thank you," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. "I just want them to be okay." 5 days later, the triplets were finally healthy enough to come home. I was filled with a mix of excitement and trepidation as I bundled them into their car seats. Lucas was supposed to meet us at home, but as we pulled into the driveway, I was greeted by an empty house. The first night was the hardest. I set up a makeshift bed in the nursery, not wanting to be far from my babies. Every few hours, I'd wake to their cries, feed them, change them, and soothe them back to sleep. Lucas was nowhere to be found, his absence a growing ache in my heart. The phone rang late that night, and I scrambled to answer, hoping it was Lucas. "Donna, it's me," he said, his voice distant. "Lucas, where are you? We need you here," I pleaded, my voice breaking. I can't do this, Donna. I thought I could, but I can't," he said before hanging up. Tears streamed down my face as I sat alone in the nursery, the weight of his words sinking in. How could he abandon us? How could he leave me to face this alone? I had to summon a strength I never knew I possessed. Each cry from the nursery felt like a call to action, and every feeding and diaper change was a small victory in the war of survival. One morning, as the sun peeked through the curtains, I cradled Aaron in my arms, rocking him gently back to sleep. His tiny fingers wrapped around mine, and for a brief moment, the exhaustion melted away. "You're a fighter, aren't you?" I whispered, kissing his forehead. "Just like your mama." The next day, Alvin, a dear friend of ours, showed up at the door. He took one look at my tear-streaked face and the chaos around me, and pulled me into a tight hug. "I'm here to help, Donna," he said softly. "You don't have to do this alone." Alvin's support was unwavering. He arrived every day with a bright smile and a determination to help. He became my anchor, grounding me when the waves of despair threatened to pull me under. We developed a routine, one that revolved around the needs of the triplets, but also allowed us to catch moments of respite. One particularly tough evening, as the triplets wailed in unison, Alvin stepped into the nursery, his face etched with concern. "Hey, Donna," he said softly, picking up Amelia. "Why don't you take a break? I've got this." "I can't," I replied, my voice strained. "They need me." "And you need to rest," he insisted, his eyes locking onto mine with a firmness that left no room for argument. "You're no good to them if you're running on empty." Reluctantly, I nodded and allowed Alvin to take over. I sank into the couch, my body aching and my mind numb. It wasn't long before I drifted into a fitful sleep, the first I'd had in days. When I woke, the house was quiet. I found Alvin in the nursery, humming softly as he rocked Alex. Amelia and Aaron were peacefully asleep in their cribs. The sight of him caring for my children with such tenderness brought tears to my eyes. "Thank you," I whispered, my voice choked with emotion. "I don't know what I'd do without you." Alvin looked up, a gentle smile playing on his lips. "You're stronger than you think, Donna. But you don't have to do this alone." The following weeks were a test of endurance. I juggled feedings, diaper changes, and doctor's appointments, all while trying to keep the house in order. Alvin was my constant companion, helping with the babies and lifting my spirits with his unwavering positivity. One afternoon, as we sat in the living room, watching the triplets play on a blanket, Alvin turned to me, his expression serious. "Donna, have you thought about what you'll do if Lucas comes back?" he asked. I sighed, the question weighing heavily on my heart. "I don't know, Alvin. Part of me wants to scream at him for abandoning us, but another part just wants him to see how amazing these babies are." Alvin became a lifeline. He helped with the babies, cooked meals, and even managed to make me laugh when I felt like crying. His presence brought a sense of stability and comfort that I desperately needed. Over time, the children grew to love him, and so did I. He was there for their first steps, their first words, every milestone that Lucas missed. As I watched Alvin rocking Amelia to sleep one evening, I realized how much he had become a part of our lives. Lucas's absence still hurt, but with Alvin by my side, I felt like I could face anything. As the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, the bond between Alvin and me grew stronger. He was there for every scraped knee, every late-night feeding, and every moment of doubt. His presence was a constant source of comfort and strength, reminding me that I was not alone in this journey. One particularly challenging day, as I juggled the demands of 3 teething toddlers, Alvin arrived with a surprise. "Donna, I've got something for you," he said, a mischievous glint in his eye. He handed me a small envelope. I opened it, revealing a gift certificate for a spa day. "Alvin, this is too much," I protested, though a part of me was already dreaming of a few hours of relaxation. "You deserve it," he insisted. "You need some time to recharge. I'll take care of the kids." With a mixture of reluctance and excitement, I accepted his gift. The spa day was a revelation, a few hours of peace and pampering that left me feeling rejuvenated. When I returned home, I found Alvin and the triplets in the backyard, playing with a new set of toys. "Look who's back," Alvin called out, lifting Alex into the air. "Did you have a good time?" "I did," I admitted, smiling at the sight of my happy children. "Thank you, Alvin. I really needed that." As I watched Alvin interact with the triplets, I realized how much he had become a part of our lives. He wasn't just a friend, he was family. It had been years since Lucas walked out of our lives, leaving a gaping hole that Alvin and I had painstakingly filled with love, care, and resilience. Our children, Alex, Amelia, and Aaron, were growing up fast, each day bringing new adventures and milestones. Alvin had become an integral part of our family, and our bond had solidified into something deep and unbreakable. One crisp autumn afternoon, as the leaves turned golden and the air grew cooler, I was at the park with the triplets. They were laughing and chasing each other around the playground, their joy infectious. Alvin was nearby, his eyes always watchful, ready to step in if needed. "Mommy, look at me," Alex shouted, balancing precariously on the edge of the sandbox. "I'm watching, sweetheart," I called back, my heart swelling with pride and contentment. It was in this moment of bliss that my phone rang. I glanced at the screen and saw an unfamiliar number. My stomach tightened with unease, but I answered anyway. "Hello, Donna," a voice from the past said, sending a chill down my spine. It was Lucas. "Lucas?" I breathed, my voice trembling. "What do you want?" "I need to see you," he said, his tone serious. "It's important." Anger surged through me. "Important? You haven't seen your children in years, and now you think you can just waltz back into our lives. Please, Donna," he pleaded, "just meet me. I promise it will be worth your time." I was about to refuse when Alvin walked over, concern etched on his face. I mouthed Lucas to him, and his expression darkened. "Fine," I said, my voice icy. "Where and when?" Lucas gave me an address to a cafe downtown and hung up. I stood there, my mind racing, the joy of the afternoon now overshadowed by dread. "What did he say?" Alvin asked, his jaw clenched. "He wants to meet," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "He said it's important." Alvin sighed, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. "Do you want me to come with you?" "No," I said, shaking my head. "I need to face him alone, but I want you to be nearby, just in case." "Of course," he agreed. "I'll be right outside." Later that evening, as I prepared to meet Lucas, Alvin stayed with the kids at home. My heart was heavy as I drove to the cafe, the memories of our past swirling in my mind. When I arrived, Lucas was already there, looking haggard and worn. "Donna," he greeted, standing as I approached. "Lucas," I said coolly, taking a seat. "What do you want?" He took a deep breath, avoiding my eyes. "I need money." I stared at him in disbelief. "Money?" After everything you've done, you have the nerve to ask me for money. It's not what you think, he said quickly. I'm in trouble, Donna. Serious trouble. I owe a lot of people a lot of money. If I don't pay them back, why should I care? I snapped. You abandoned your family. You left me alone to raise our children. Why should I help you? Because I'm desperate, he whispered, his voice breaking. And I know I don't deserve it, but please, I'm begging you. I leaned back, crossing my arms. What's the real reason you're here, Lucas? It can't just be about the money. He hesitated, then glanced around nervously. There's more. If you don't help me, I'll tell everyone about Alvin. My heart skipped a beat. What about Alvin? He leaned in, his eyes cold. I know things about him. Things that could ruin his reputation. If you don't give me what I want, I'll make sure everyone knows. Fury coursed through me. You're blackmailing me. I'm giving you a choice, he said quietly. Help me or watch Alvin's life crumble. I stood abruptly, my chair scraping against the floor. You're despicable, Lucas. I won't let you hurt Alvin or our family. As I stormed out of the cafe, I called Alvin, my hands shaking. We need to talk, I said urgently. Lucas is trying to blackmail us. I'll meet you at home, Alvin replied, his voice tense. When I arrived back home, Alvin was waiting. I explained everything, my anger and fear spilling out in a torrent of words. We can't let him get away with this, Alvin said firmly. We need to gather evidence of his threats and take legal action. Over the next few weeks, Alvin and I worked tirelessly, documenting every interaction with Lucas. We recorded phone calls, saved text messages, and even hired a private investigator to dig into Lucas's activities. The more we uncovered, the clearer it became that Lucas was not just desperate, he was dangerous. One night, as we reviewed our findings, Alvin turned to me, his expression grim. We have enough to take to the police. Are you ready for this? I nodded, my resolve steeled. I'm ready. We need to protect our family. We handed everything over to the authorities, who were quick to act. Lucas was arrested and charged with multiple offenses, including extortion and abandonment. The trial that followed was intense, the evidence painting a damning picture of Lucas's actions. In the courtroom, I faced Lucas one last time. He looked defeated, a shadow of the man I once knew. I never wanted it to come to this, I said softly, but you left me no choice. Lucas's eyes filled with regret, but it was too late for apologies. The verdict was guilty on all counts, and he was sentenced to several years in prison. As Alvin and I left the courthouse, the weight of the past finally lifted from our shoulders. We had faced the darkness and emerged stronger, our bond unbroken. Thank you, I whispered to Alvin, my heart full of gratitude for everything. He smiled, taking my hand. We did this together, Donna, and we'll keep moving forward, no matter what. Back at home, we hugged our children tightly, knowing that our family was safe. The future was still uncertain, but with Alvin by my side and the love of my children, I knew we could face anything.